All right, everybody, welcome back. Get ready, because today we're diving deep into something you might not expect.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling the passive voice.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
And believe me, it's way more fascinating than it sounds in, high school grammar class.
Thrilling, right?
We're going way beyond just the rules here. We'll be looking at how languages function,
Uh-huh.
and even how we think, how our brains process information.
It gets pretty deep.
Plus, we've got some seriously cool trivia up our sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
For example, did you know that some languages out there
Yeah.
don't even have a passive voice?
Really?
We're going to find out how they get around that.
I'm intrigued.
But first things first.
Okay.
Let's make sure we're all starting on the same page.
Yeah.
Can you give us a clear definition of what exactly passive voice is?
Absolutely. It can sound kind of jargony. So the simplest way to put it is this. It's all about how we construct a sentence.
Okay.
And in a passive sentence, the subject of the sentence is on the receiving end of the action, not the one doing it. So instead of saying the dog chased the ball, you'd say the ball was chased by the dog.
Oh, I see.
Notice how it shifts the emphasis.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it changes things.
Exactly.
So like saying, the cookies were eaten, but we don't know who the Cookie Monster was in this case.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
But why would we ever choose to use the passive voice? It seems less direct,
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to emphasize the action itself, not who did it.
Hmm.
Think about news reports, for example.
Yeah.
They often use passive voice, like the bridge was damaged in the storm.
Makes sense.
The focus is on the damage, not on who or what caused it.
Right, it just sort of happened.
Right. And it also makes it sound more objective.
Yeah, it does. It's like in a science paper.
Exactly.
The data was analyzed using such and such a method.
Right. It almost removes the human element.
That's right. It's just the facts.
Precisely. And it can also be a tactful way to avoid placing blame.
Oh, interesting.
So instead of saying John made the error, you might hear an error was made.
Ooh, very clever.
Less finger pointing, more focus on the issue itself.
It's like a linguistic shield.
Uh-huh. In a way, yes.
So we've got this tool that can be used for subtle emphasis and tone and all that. But you mentioned earlier that not every language on the planet has this passive voice thing. I mean, how do they manage to express the same ideas then?
Well, it really highlights how diverse languages are.
I know, right?
Passive voice is not at all a universal concept. Some languages use entirely different structures to achieve similar effects. Take Japanese, for instance. They often use a structure that focuses on the state something is in as a result of an action. So rather than saying someone broke the window, they might say the window is broken, but without explicitly mentioning who did the breaking.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's fascinating.
That the language itself almost guides you towards a certain way of thinking about things. It really does show how much language can shape our understanding of the world.
Absolutely.
Speaking of how we think,
Yes.
I was reading that understanding and using passive voice is actually pretty complicated for our brain.
Definitely.
It's more than just rearranging words on a page.
Much more. I mean, we use these types of sentences all the time without even thinking about it, but the mental gymnastics going on behind the scenes is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you don't realize it.
Your brain has to figure out who's doing what, understand their roles, and then totally restructure the sentence to highlight a specific element.
It's like linguistic yoga or something.
That's a good way to put it. And it probably explains why it takes children a while to get the hang of using passive voice correctly.
That's true.
It shows just how complex and nuanced human language is.
Totally.
And it's a testament to our brain's incredible ability to learn and use these intricate systems of communication.
So we've talked about how powerful passive voice can be and all the different ways it can be used. But I imagine that the way it's used probably varies depending on what kind of writing you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a lab report probably wouldn't use passive voice in the same way as a novel would.
Exactly. In professional writing, especially in scientific and technical fields, passive voice is often the go-to choice.
Okay.
Because it sounds more objective and formal.
Makes sense.
But overusing it can make the writing feel really dry.
Yeah, no personality.
Right. On the other hand, in storytelling, passive voice is used much more strategically.
Interesting.
It can be super effective for building suspense or for emphasizing how vulnerable a character is.
Oh, I see.
Like the door was slowly pushed open.
Ooh, yeah.
Suddenly, the reader is on the edge of their seat, not knowing who's behind that door.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like something bad is about to happen.
Exactly. It all comes down to using the right tool for the right job.
That makes sense.
And skillful use of the passive voice can add so many layers of meaning.
It's really amazing when you think about it.
It is.
So when we pull all of this together, passive voice is so much more than just some stuffy grammar rule.
Oh, totally.
It really reflects how we as humans think and communicate.
Yeah.
We can use it subtly to highlight things or downplay them, or even create specific effects.
That's pretty versatile.
It's remarkable.
And the fact that some languages have passive constructions and others don't, it makes you wonder how that might affect the way speakers of those languages see and interact with the world.
That's a really fascinating thought.
Right.
And that's a great note to leave our listeners on. I challenge you to start paying attention to how passive voice is being used all around you.
In the wild.
Yeah, like in the news and everyday conversations, even in the books you read. See if you can figure out what the speaker's intent is.
Good exercise.
What does it tell you about the situation? Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the amazing world of language. Until next time.
See you then.